So Ben, we're going to talk now, if you don't mind. We're going to switch gears completely, right? We're going to get into UFOs, dude. We've had this night vision UFO appearing, the whole green thing, and now the Pentagon have confirmed it.
Yeah, this is an interesting new event. Now, there's been a lot of talk over the last few months. I mean, the UFO Jesus, the post-disclosure world guy, he has been talking about this. Oh, somewhere out there, he says, there is a clear picture of a triangular UFO close to some Navy fighter jets. Now, I don't think this is the actual thing that's being talked about on that situation, because it's actually not that impressive. It's not as impressive as it's been described in some circles. It's basically a night vision clip. Now it's a night vision object on a ship called USS Russell, which is a U.S. Navy destroyer, and you can hear voices in the background, which are the ship's sailors, and it appears that it's not a very good quality. I think someone's literally held a mobile phone or a camcorder up to the lens, and you can see, luckily there is low cloud. It's a cloudy sky, and that's good because it controls for normal things, astronomical normalities, stars and things like that, and planets. And you see some lights that are moving, and the optic zooms in on it. Now they have a distinct triangular profile, which is quite unusual. I've not actually seen that before. It was certainly recently with this series that's emerged since 2017. Now, unfortunately, the lights are flashing repeatedly, and it seems to match what you get from an aircraft's navigation beacon. That's a disappointment. And Mick West, who makes a lot of mistakes about things, he believes that what you're seeing is basically this is being photographed through a triangular filter. There's a triangular filter over the lens, which is causing this triangular shape of the lights, because the lights look structured at first. Now, I don't know if that's true, but see, that's not the end of it, you see, because if that was just the whole story, then it wouldn't, I'd have to agree with the skeptics and say that this is not actually very significant. However, George Knapp has been talking to crew members of this ship and others, and not only, as you say, the Pentagon has confirmed this is real footage, but there's more which they haven't yet confirmed. For example, they've also, Corbell and Knapp have been talking to a guy who's a sailor on an inshore patrol vessel, actually called USS Omaha, and he received anonymous correspondence from this person originally, but obviously they can't speak openly about this. But they've confirmed the person's identity, and apparently there were stills of a spherical craft near this warship, and the sailor believes it's something genuinely anomalous. Richard Dolan did a video. He seems to be back on form now after a bit of a lapse, and he talks about another ship called USS Kidd, which has also had encounters. And it's not the footage. The footage essentially is just the cherry on the cake, but the cake is actually far more interesting. It's the film footage is actually some of the least convincing parts of it. The witness testimony from the three ships now that have come out, which includes, it's very, very much like 2017. There's telemetry. Apparently there are firing solutions, there are radar logs, there's electronic support measure data and things like that, which can't be declassified simply because it gives away too much information about the capabilities of the ships, which are closely guarded secrets. However, because it's not related to the UFO context per se, but the sailors do say that something really, multiple witnesses now are saying something weird did happen when these ships were out at sea. And so I think this could lead to something quite significant. I don't know specifically, but we'll find out.
I'm just going to pull something up here. I found another video today. I'm going to drop the link for this over in Discord. Over in the TFR chat room. Give me 2 seconds. Some triangular stuff coming out right now. And what do you make of, what's your take on this time that we're living in now? As guys that always discuss disclosure, what do you make of somebody leaking information to Jeremy Corbell in this instance? We've got George Knapp there. And listen, I'm not in any way, for anyone listening to this, I'm not having a go at these guys, but it's kind of significant when we've got somebody bringing them information, they release it, and then the Pentagon come along and give it the big thumb, the green light, affirmative. They confirm what's put out there. What do you make of all that, dude? That's weird, right?
It's quite a common pattern now. It's been around for quite a long time, since December 2017. We've had this sort of process, like you've described. Something gets leaked, later on it's confirmed, and that cycle seems to be speeding up. I mean, it didn't take very long for the confirmation to come about with this latest thing from the USS Russell. This video you just showed me. I mean, you showed me the. Did it go behind the tree at some point? Because that's very interesting. Because that's right, it does. Yeah, that's rather like the Dudley Dorito, if you remember that one, which is actually a video from Dudley in the Black Country.
And I've not run this through any programs to see if there's any obvious telltale signs, but on first look, and I'm somebody that's kind of hard to to kind of convince right away. I don't know. I'm not saying it's an alien. It looks like it could be some kind of drone, but definitely triangular delta kind of shape, you know?
You can't actually, unfortunately, these days, you can't actually look at any piece of visual evidence and say, is it real or is it?
Dude.
You can't. It's the signal-to-noise ratio now is really appalling. However, just when something goes behind a tree, if I was faking an image like that, I wouldn't make it go behind trees, because once it starts going behind things like trees, you have a layering problem. Because you've got to make sure that your fake image goes behind every single branch and twig. Otherwise, some sharp-eyed skeptics will notice, oh, hang on, it goes in front of that branch. Why is that? You see what I mean? One of the interesting things about the Dudley Dorito is it doesn't show that layer. It doesn't show any layering anomalies, which means either it's a very, very well concocted fake, or it is genuine. They're depicting a genuine object in the sky. If it is genuine, then, well, there's no aircraft we know of that looks like that. I mean, there are triangular-shaped aircraft like the F-117 that has a triangular shape, as is the B-2. You know, that's the bomber. That again, it's an aeroplane with a triangular shape. However, there's nothing with those particular aircraft. These very obvious. Some of these images that are coming out are not those aircraft. So what they are, I don't know, but I mean, I do believe some of them are real. There's so many people describing them. There's so many images. The triangle now has become almost as common as the classic flying saucer, which indicates that wherever it comes from, it's obviously quite a common form. I mean, there's various different types of these flying triangles. Some are different colors. Some have lights on. Some are big. Some are small. Things like that. So, interesting stuff, Kev. I mean, there's no final answer on a video, unfortunately, but still, it's worth. It makes me wonder what's going on. Your original question was about the Pentagon and how they confirm things. Is this some form of acclimatization to reality, or is it some form of disinformation? Do you remember we filled an entire show once discussing that question?
And I still think we could fill a 24-hour session and come round this topic, look at it from various different angles, and that's what I like about kind of working with you, Ben. We're two people that are inclined to look for the woo, but at the same time, we keep one foot on logic's shore. You know, we try to scrutinize everything. We try to use our experience to try and game out what's happening. I really don't know. I say we're moving into a sci-fi age. We know that we've got technology that would probably appear like magic to us because it's so far advanced. And again, I lean towards, but I don't know definitively if they're bringing us up to speed with that. I don't know if they know that there's something coming in. Let me ask you another UFO-related question, because I think you're somebody that will probably be able to speak to this. I had Lon Strickler from Phantoms and Monsters on Warrior Mode with me last night with Bill Bean and the team, and he was talking about a really interesting report that he's investigating right now, that a certain Indrid Cold has reappeared on the scene. Somebody seen the smiling man. Then there was an interruption on a phone call with somebody claiming to be Indrid Cold. You obviously know the name because I can tell by your face. This is what I love about Ben. He's somebody you can fire anything at him, like historical UFO stuff, cryptids. Boom. He's on it in a heartbeat. So what do you make of this, the re-emergence of Indrid Cold?
Well, you're right, Kev. I'm a complete anorak when it comes to these things. Indrid Cold is, the moment you said that, I thought, blimey, because Indrid Cold is actually a figure that was supposedly seen in Point Pleasant, Virginia in 1965. Now, it was seen, there were some phone calls with Indrid Cold, but who Indrid Cold was, it's a very strange thing because it's connected to the general weirdness that was going on at Point Pleasant at that time, which includes the famous Mothman. The Mothman was only one of a whole series of weird events that took place in that town. This is West Virginia, USA, 1965, by the Silver Bridge, which then collapsed. It's very weird, that. And
we see that's one of the first mistakes I made, Ben. And I think it's probably wise to point out to anyone out there, if you want to dive into the Mothman prophecies, you know, the real investigation of what was happening around that time, do not go in there expecting to get some book that gives you a well-structured story. But this is like a journal of all the high weirdness, all the strange things, and the Mothman actually only makes up maybe 30% of the book.
Yeah.
There's other weirdness going on, right?
John Keel, the author, he did a sterling effort, I think, in documenting. He spent a lot of time in Point Pleasant. He investigated thoroughly everything that was going on there, and he tried to get to the bottom of it all. The people were in the village, in the town. It's quite a small. It's not a small town. It's about 5,000, 10,000 people. They were quite horrified by what was going on, and you see, Indrid Cold and the various other weird things, they'd suddenly appear and then just vanish. It's very obvious that these were not humans. I mean, it's like the Men in Black, which John Keel also specialized in studying, which began in the mid 60s when there was a lot of talk about the Men in Black. The idea the original idea that the Men in Black was some kind of government agency, rather like the film with Will Smith, and it's not like that at all. The Men in Black appear to be some kind of supernatural entity, and Indrid Cold appears to be a part of this phenomenon, although who he was, I don't know. But the fact he's come back is very interesting. I'd be curious to find out the circumstances. Has he come back to the same place, Point Pleasant, or is he somewhere else?
I believe it's the Ohio region. You know, just speak to this another couple of seconds longer, Ben, and I'll dig up a brief clip of what's been going on, okay? Even the UFO stuff. So, well, what do you think's happening? We'll go back to the UFOs while I dig up this little segment of clip. We had the triangular thing there, the Pentagon thing. Your thoughts in general, then, as we build up to the big release? The big release. Well, it's not going to be as big as some people think, but what's your thoughts, man?
Well, it's obviously, whatever the government know about the UFO phenomenon, I think there's an awful lot that they don't know about. And whatever they tell us, whatever they can tell us, it could be that they have the Roswell crash and things like that. I mean, if they tell us that, that'd be absolutely great. I'd be very interested to know that. And of course, that it will be an absolutely revolutionary event in all kinds of ways. But at the same time, they will have to admit, and I think most people already know, there's still an awful lot connected to UFOs which they don't understand. Nobody understands. It may be this is literally the various analogies are, you know, you fish in a tank, you know, someone drops some weird thing and no one knows what it is. It could be this is beyond our comprehension, but very often these weird things happen around UFO flaps. You know, the things like the Men in Black are associated with UFOs. Very often they'll threaten UFO people like Jim Templeton, who we talked about before. This was 1964 that happened. He photographs an alien. He doesn't photograph it. He takes a photograph, and an alien appears in it. These beings appear at his door. It's like they just know what's going on. It's weird. It's extremely, as if there's so much in the universe that doesn't make sense. Could we ever understand it? And will we ever find out? If we do, will we even understand the answers? I don't know.
No, you're right there, dude. You're right there. Now listen. I think I'm at the part where this clip is from. I'm only going to play a couple of minutes of it, just so we get the location and the gist of the re-emergence of Indrid Cold, ladies and gentlemen. You're about to hear myself and Lon Strickler now. Take a listen to this. What have you been up to, Lon? What's been going on over at the website, over at Arcane Radio?
Well, things are picking up a bit. I mean, I tell you, between the COVID and then the winter, it's been pretty slow. But we picked a case week before last, and Travis mentioned it earlier. Associate of mine by the name of Gabriel, who lives in Queens, New York. He's a haunting experiencer and an intuitive. I've been working with him, I guess, almost a decade now. He was contacted by a friend of his by the name of Jessica, who lives in Hartwick, New York, which is just, I guess, above Cooperstown. Yeah, I guess it's about 120, 150 miles north of New York City. So anyway, she had given him details on 2 encounters after he had actually gotten up there, but she had called him the night of the incident. And, he stated to me, and I'm going to be reading on some of this, that during the first 2 encounters, she had gotten calls from someone with a terse, clipped tone of voice calling themselves Indrid Cold. Now, for those folks that aren't familiar with Indrid Cold, it kind of has a connection with the Mothman incident in Point Pleasant indirectly, but actually it was an incident that happened to a man by the name of Woodrow Derenberger in November 1967. And it was about the same time the Mothman incidents were going on in Point Pleasant. And Parkersburg is actually 55 miles north of Point Pleasant. So, to kind of illustrate what was going on, that Mason County area, and other counties around there, and practically all up and down the Ohio River Valley, it's a strange area anyway, and still stuff goes on there. But beside the Mothman sightings, there were a lot of UFO sightings. That's really what started a lot of the things off that John Keel had actually gotten involved with all the UFO activity. And of course, there was a lot of paranormal stuff going on. It was crazy. Anyway, this Woodrow Derenberger was driving home from Ohio, and as he was driving home, he saw a spacecraft, saucer-like spacecraft, descending in front of him on the road. And as it landed, the side door opened up. I don't know if it was a ramp-like door or what it was, but this figure came walking out of there. And as it walked closer to Woodrow, he noticed it had this huge grin on its face. It looked human, but it had this really weird grin on its face. And if you've ever heard the term the grinning man, that's what the people are referring to, Indrid Cold. Well, anyway, he came up to Woodrow, asked him to roll his window down, and Woodrow did. I mean, and he told Woodrow, you need not be afraid of me. Just like you, I bleed like you. I am human in almost every way. But it was just so strange. I mean, this guy, so they were talking, and he was talking about things that would happen and this and that. And then not long after, while they were talking, this craft actually ascended off the ground and hovered on top of them, above them. And eventually, this Indrid Cold disappeared. And in fact, 2 days later, Woodrow Derenberger had another encounter with this being. Well, anyway, and if you look into the Indrid Cold story, he did tell Derenberger that he would be back. Now, over the years, there have been people who have stated that they have had encounters with Indrid Cold, though there's really been no association with it with other phenomena. But we called it this case that this friend of Gabriel called him about. And anyway, while she was on the phone with him, telling him about this encounter, now he was, he hadn't gone up there yet. This voice came on the phone saying he was Indrid Cold. Now, the caller ID came up as Indrid Cold. But there was no phone number, no contact, nothing, no other information. He even tried the the star 69 thing, and that didn't work. So when Gabriel heard her tell him this, he kind of got a shudder in his body. She didn't know what it meant, but of course he knew. And anyway, she now this Jessica really did not believe in anything 14 or supernatural, but I mean, she shook up. So Gabriel didn't really know what he could do to help her, but he did go up there. He got on a bus and he went up there the next day, and he actually stayed up there for about 5 days, I think. And as soon as he got home, he sent me the recording, but he called me before he drove up there. But when this Indrid Cold called her, he stated to her, "You did not see you did not see anything." And that kind of freaked her, because the sighting was only like 20 minutes, a half an hour before this phone call came in. She hadn't told anybody about it, though she was on the phone with Gabriel. They had the call waiting come up, and that's when this Indrid Cold call came in. So she got freaked. She hung up real quickly, told Gabriel the name on the phone and what this person said. And then they got another call waiting, got another phone call, and she didn't answer. So what makes this very interesting is that she claims that she had 2 sightings of what she calls a dark flying man. Now, I really don't know of any other case or reference to Indrid Cold where the Mothman or the winged humanoid would be involved. That's what makes this so interesting. The first sighting she had, this thing was several meters above her house. It was kind of hazy looking, but she was able to tell it had a humanoid shape, it had wings, but not on its back. It was kind of extending off its torso. And she judged the wingspan was about 12 foot total.
So we're talking about flying humanoids, Ben. And what's even stranger is that this thing had red eyes, but halfway down its torso. Not on like where you would expect the head to be, but down on the torso area. And of course, this Indrid Cold. Now, we're told we can only take it as anecdotal evidence, but this person had no idea who Indrid Cold was, just a name to her, until somebody knew that name and then gave her the backstory. So what do you make of it, dude?
Well, the fact that she claims not to have heard the name Indrid Cold before is very interesting, because she can't have picked it up from any media in that case. If that's true, then how would she have come up with that name independently, unless there was some objective reality to what she was experiencing? It's an amazing. This is happening more and more, and it's around the world where people have these. They meet these weird people. I've been trying to find this. To show you, I'll find it later and talk to you off air about it. But there was a TV series which was from the 70s, and they were interviewing various people who'd had weird encounters with UFOs and aliens. And there was there was a couple driving along. It's very like the Indrid Cold scenario. This was in Hampshire, in UK, in the 1970s, and they were driving along and they were stopped by what they thought was a policeman. And they saw this, but then they saw this weird thing coming down. It's this weird alien craft coming down, and this creature was talking to them and saying, "Don't tell anyone you saw that, will you? Don't tell anyone you saw that." It's pretty obvious this was not this was not a human. It's a complicated story. I'll find a clip for you. But what are these things, Kev? I mean, they don't look like the kind of aliens you see in what a lot of people do see when they have encounters with UFOs. It's usually they slightly have different properties. They are more like, some of them look like clowns. In fact, I'm interested in the clown sightings that appeared a couple of years ago. That was another weird thing like that. And those mysterious social workers that turned up at people's doors and things. There's many, many other examples of these encounters with people who are not alien, but at the same time they're not human. There's something else. It's like a third option, a third, whatever you call that,
What do you call that? I'm with Ben, and I think that's where the Men in Black come into it, and we'll get back into this on the other side. hour number 2 on today's Kev Baker Show with special guest Ben Emlyn-Jones. And don't go anywhere after KBS today, because lucky she takes over the mic and it's Quantum Connections all the way right here on tfrlive.com. Big shout out to everyone over at the website, everyone on the Paranormal Radio app, everyone over at TalkStream Live, and everyone over there. Big audience over there. And of course, everyone in the very compact and Beijing KBS Discord server. All of you, wherever you are, whenever you are. I hope you're enjoying today's really, really great conversation with Ben Emlyn-Jones. And I was telling Ben before the break all about Mothman and a new winged humanoid been sighted in New York State, and how it's led to the re-emergence of a very, very interesting character, the grinning man, the smiling man, Indrid Gold. And of course, Ben, he's got a Rolodex for a memory, and he's able to pull out these cases, you know, things that nobody's heard of. But you were telling us, Ben, this has happened in the UK. Not an Indrid Gold, but something similar, right?
Yeah, it's remarkable how similar these experiences are for people all over the world. People who certainly don't have an existing interest in the subject, which what you'll find is that a lot of the witnesses do not. They don't fit the skeptic stereotype, which is people like you and me. And there's a very interesting TV series, and I honestly wish I could remember what it was called. But you get it on YouTube. It was made in the 70s. There's an elderly couple actually driving an old Morris Minor, lovely old car they are, just driving along. They actually take the camera crew in their car and they describe where they were driving. They were in Hampshire, England. And they are literally pulled over to the side of the road. Someone signals them and they pull over. And then they see this spacecraft, this flying saucer, landing next to them. And the creature says, look, don't tell anyone about that, okay? He literally leans on the side of the car like a policeman would and leans in and pokes his face into the car. And again, we have this strange situation where what this person is, I mean, they're not human. It's clear they're not human, but at the same time, they're not alien. They don't resemble in all kinds of properties the kinds of beings that people report when they have alien abduction, for example. So it's like this is some kind of third option, some kind of third position when it comes to weirdness.
How does the UK rank alongside the US when it comes to witnesses claiming interference by or some kind of contact with what we would call the Men in Black? The very John Keel weird Men in Black option. Does it happen as much over here, or is that more an American phenomenon?
From what I've seen, I don't have the actual statistics, but I'd say it probably happens more in Britain than in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, Scotland especially, you'll be glad to know, seems to be an absolute...
Doesn't surprise me.
Yes. For its size and population, actually, Scotland is by far the most paranormal UFO hotspot in the world. And I'd say generally more so. I mean,
but Men in Black type things going on as well?
Yes, indeed. I mentioned Jim Templeton, who actually... the photograph he took in 1964 was remarkable because he was just taking a photograph of his daughter. They were out walking in the countryside, and when he got it developed at the chemist, he said, "Oh, there's this weird thing behind it. What's that?" And you could see the strange white figure, humanoid figure, which is all kinds of weird things about it. And he reports it became very famous when it was published in newspapers. The UFO press got hold of it. He did take phone calls and things from ufologists, but then a few days later he had a knock. That's the one. Yeah, Solway Firth Spaceman. He had a few knocks on the door from some weird people, and he said they were like dressed in dark suits, strangely pasty skin, wearing sunglasses. Yeah, that kind of thing. And they said, "Can you tell us a bit more about what you saw, sir?" And he said, funny thing is, when people have encounters with these beings, they themselves act differently. It's like what Jenny Randles calls the Oz factor. It's like you yourself start behaving differently than you normally would, as if they have some hold over your mind, or you enter some kind of parallel universe with them. And he said, he described what happened. He showed them the print, and they said, right, could you show us where this is? We'll take you. You get in the car with us, and we'll take directions. And they got in the car, and what often happens, these beings sometimes do drive cars, but the cars are very often of an unusual make. They often are quite old-fashioned looking. Sometimes they're of a make that no one's ever even seen before. Despite the fact they looked old-fashioned, these cars often look brand new, like they've been very well looked after, or they just came off the line the following day. He drives them up to the to the Borough Marsh where this photograph was taken. He shows them where it is, and they said, "Don't tell anyone about this. You understand?" And they get very aggressive with him. They really put the heavies on him, and they said, "Tell no one." And then they get in the car and they drive off, leaving him to walk home. Now, what's interesting about this experience, and I mean, people have questioned the photograph. I mean, there's people like Jason Gleaves. I think you might know him. He's a UFO photo expert. He's questioned over whether this is actually a real alien in the photo. He really does. However, the fact that Mr. Templeton reported this experience, I think, what makes it remarkable with this is that the concept of the Men in Black wasn't popularized in those days. It was literally Keel's book, which came out in '67, I believe, which really entered the whole concept of the Men in Black into popular culture. Before then, it was unknown. Obviously, these things were happening. I mean, Men in Black-like encounters go back throughout history. They've been seen all over the world as well. They were seen in southern Africa centuries ago. The local people call them the Beasts of the Terrible Blanket. But what they describe is essentially very like Men in Black. But in the popular culture didn't have them. So Mr. Templeton hadn't been watching any movies or reading any comics or anything like that. He had no idea. Then he reports this encounter. I think it lends weight to his story, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you, dude. I agree with you. There's something really weird. That photograph, you might have mentioned it there, I'm not sure, but didn't they actually get that checked by Kodak or somebody at the time, and they verified it was like genuine, the photograph anyway, didn't they?
Yes, in fact, Kodak offered a lifetime supply of free film to anyone who could prove that was a fake. They got their best experts to look at the print and the negative, and they said that is real. And this was in the days before you had Photoshop, and in those days, photographic evidence actually meant something. And if you look at the photo very closely, you can actually see that the layering is perfect. I mean, for example, little Elizabeth, the little girl, you see strands of hair coming from the crowns of her head. She has like a good old-fashioned 60s basin haircut. And you can see quite clearly the part of the humanoid figure is behind the strand of her hair. So, again, that there's no layering errors with that image, which indicates that is a real thing. I mean, in those days, it would be very, very difficult to get that layering right because you didn't have electronic photo manipulation. So I think it's a real image. Jason thinks that that's actually Mrs. Templeton. There's reasons to call that into question. Actually, the fact that the figure appears to be slightly above the ground is very interesting indeed. I don't think Mrs. Templeton could jump in the air that high. Things like that. Other people call into question.
Set of legs on her. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, Jason's work's amazing. He's written an interesting book. He'd be a good guest for your show if you haven't had him on already. But he knows a lot about UFO imagery. He's an experiencer himself, so he's not a skeptic. He believes they're real, but he does question things like this. However, let's put this together with the Men in Black story, and I think we do have an interesting case. It's never been, after almost 60 years now, it's never been solved. Little Elizabeth, she's a big girl now. Obviously, she's older lady, and she stands by her story. Jim Templeton died in 2011, but he never changed his story. He never said that he made it up or anything like that.
I tell you, dude, it's compelling. It's definitely one of the ones. It's like a Hall of Famer. It's one of the more infamous ones, right? Now, I want to ask you. You mentioned this gentleman's name earlier on. He's one of the few people that, if somebody said to me, who do I check out for UFO type news? Naturally, you'd be in there for UK. I would recommend you. But, one of the bigger names out there would be Richard Dolan, right? And you mentioned he's getting back on form, the black pill. What's happening, Ben?
Richard Dolan did a video. It was actually a bit dismaying to watch. And I mean, because he's someone I respect enormously. He's really... he seems to have a very, very good grasp of the subject, and he's very, very good at expressing it. He's written some amazing books about it. But he made a video which was quite dismal. I got the feeling he was being he was actually quite morose in this video. It's called, let's just see the detail. It's called Disclosure in a Divided World, I think it's called. And I felt it was a little bit. It could be because that he has he actually, I think he had a bereavement. I think it was one of his parents died, and it may be to do with that. I don't know. But Disclosure in a Divided World. Now this is just after he had a long debate with Bryce Sable. Excuse me. Bryce Sable is his co-author of AD After Disclosure, and Dolan started to say things like, well, I don't think there's going to be any progress with this. I don't think we're going to get anything from the government now. This is what's happened since 2017 in the ATIP and TTSA thing. It's not really as significant as people think. It's not decisive. It's not what he calls a red line. What he calls a red line is decisive physical evidence, such as the crash retrievals and things like that. But he says, I used to think that if this happened like before 2010, I'd have said, oh, definitely we're going to have this. This is an avalanche event. In other words, it's a trigger for genuine disclosure with a capital D. But it hasn't happened, he said. And that leads me to think, maybe it won't. It could be that, this cycle of history is turned against us. The truth embargo really is in control completely now, and they're going to get the genie back in the bottle. And when the UAPTF report comes out in June, it's going to be just a few standard, man walking dog on Canuck chase, sees light in the sky kind of thing. There's going to be nothing. There's going to be nothing at all in it which is in any way significant. It's going to be interesting cases, and that's it. It's going to be like Nick Pope's UFO files, the ones that he released, or his organisation released, the AS2 at the Ministry of Defence. So it's almost like he feels that we're fighting a losing battle here, and I thought that was it was out of character for him, because normally he's rational, but he tends to be more positive. And so I was quite pleased by his new video that he brought out, which was, it appears he seems to have changed his mind a bit since then. He's not quite as despondent and pessimistic as he was in the previous video he made. So
I do agree with him about the upcoming release. I don't think it's going to be everything that some people think it's going to be. But why is it? And this isn't at you, Ben, but everyone, me included, why is it we even crave or pay any interest in the people in the corridors of power coming out and telling us about something that, come on, I think we've all pretty much decided it's a done deal. It's not if there are aliens and if they are coming here. I think we pretty much all now believe that there are aliens, and yep, they do come here. And yet, we call out the governments and the Pentagon and the MOD for everything else. Yet, Ben, people like me and you, we still, maybe crave is the wrong word, but we still kind of look for a day, that romantic moment where they come out onto the Pentagon lawn and say, yep, you guys, these are all right, here's the files. We don't need them, do we? We already know that these things are here.
I think it may be psychological. I mean, it's one thing to know these things exist, but it's to do with us knowing these things exist. It's very different from having them confirmed by that big Freudian father figure in the White House or in Westminster. So it is a psychological thing, no doubt about it at all. But it's the fact of the matter is, should we hold the government in this position where we believe they could ever be in any way trustworthy, in any way honest with us, because they have a track record for deceit and abuse as long as your arm. So why now suddenly should we look at them and say, come on, tell us the truth, you know all this, don't you?
We're all suffering various degrees of Stockholm Syndrome. We know they abuse us and we keep running back for more,
It sounds like that, doesn't it? And maybe there is an element to that. So it's a valid criticism. At the same time, are they invincible, Kev? Are they absolutely unbeatable, or are they fallible like everybody else is? Whether they're human or whether they're the reptilians that David Icke talks about, they're not gods. They do make mistakes. They lose control at times. Things don't go their way all the time. And Tony Topping did a very, very interesting interview. Now, Tony Topping's a good guy. I think have you had him on the show?
No, I know of him, but I haven't had him on.
Mm-hmm. He's quite well known in this community. He's an experiencer. He does talks and things. He's going to publish a book soon. He was on, of all things, talk radio. So he actually went on to the mainstream media. Now, I've always said, have nothing to do with the mainstream media. Just don't go anywhere near them. Because, of course, if you go to them and you take part in a documentary where they film you for a week and then edit you down to 20 minutes, they'll make you look like a clown. And they do. And I've been asked to take part in these kind of productions. I've refused. And when I see the end result, I'm very relieved. But I make an exception for live media. If you get if you get onto live TV or onto live radio, it's worth doing. Now, you don't have complete freedom of the air. I mean, obviously, there's a director in the gallery. They'll press the red button if you swear or you do something illegal, you say something illegal and things like that. But they cannot edit the meaning of your words. That's very important. You do have control over what of your the context by which you speak. Tony was only on this show on Talk Radio, which is one of the biggest radio shows in the country. He was on the Mark Dolan show, no relation to Richard, and he got 10 minutes on the air. And I'll tell you what, it was actually pretty good. He got to say the kinds of things he would say if he'd been on this show, on KBS. He really did. I was very impressed. He took advantage of this unique opportunity, and he really milked it for every drop he could get. And he talked about, for example, he thinks there's some division within the government right now, and some of them are actually saying that the truth about UFOs does need to come out. It's as if, like, the Illuminati, whoever the ultimate bad guys are actually losing control. They're actually losing control of this enfant terrible they've created and they've been running for the last few centuries. Yeah, that is the countries and the governments and things like that and they're actually losing control of these things. Now, if that's true, then willing disclosure with a capital D is possible, but only if that's the case. On the other hand, it could be that that's a big sham, and there's some ulterior motive behind all this, which is actually just going to bury the truth deeper and deeper, and it's some kind of disinformation. That's another possibility. I know this is the show we filled up an entire program talking about once, didn't we? There's no way of knowing. I mean, eventually, if you become too suspicious, it becomes a kind of unfalsifiable hypothesis. If everything that happens because the government want it to happen, and there's people in this movement who believe that. I know people who actually believe that everything that happens because that's what the government want to happen. So if something happens that looks like it's not what the government want to happen, they do really. It's just they're being more crafty and more subtle at a deeper level. They're playing four-dimensional chess with your mind. So the problem with that is that then the New World Order can never be seen to end. Disclosure can never happen. It can never be seen to happen. Because I always ask these people, if you really think this, then what criteria would have to be fulfilled for you to believe what you're hearing? And they sort of shake their head and they say, never thought about that really. So
you see, you're disturbing their very technological modern day version of Dungeons and Dragons. They're LARPing about looking for white hats and white rabbits and all the likes. You see, don't be coming along with logic like that, Ben. Listen, I hope we're on the verge of finding out. I really do. Now, there's one case I want to get your thoughts on. And I don't even have to worry about whether you're going to know this case or not. But it's come across my desk again lately. Big shout out to Uncle Donny down in Australia. The Baltic Sea Anomaly. Ben Emlyn-Jones. For me, this is, or was back at the time, one of the more fascinating kind of topics that I'd heard about, started looking into. Still don't have any definitive answer either way on what it is that people are looking at down there. But what do you make of this, Ben?
It's amazing you brought this up again, Kev, because, I mean, this has gone quiet over the last few years. Now, this was something that was found in the Baltic Sea by a group of marine salvage operatives, treasure hunters, in other words, people who go around searching shipwrecks for anything valuable. And they came across this strange structure. It's been christened the Millennium Falcon because it looks like the famous spaceship from the Star Wars franchise. It's no, they didn't tell anyone exactly where it was. But I'm guessing it's somewhere in the northeast area of the Baltic in the Gulf of Bothnia or somewhere like that, which is the sea between Finland and Sweden. The reason is because they had to leave it in the winter because the sea was froze over. Now, that doesn't happen in the entire Baltic. It only happens in the northeastern area of the Baltic. So it's somewhere in that area. And it's said to be in like about 200 feet of water. It's now people have said to me, oh, people said, oh, it's a UFO. I don't know specifically. It's apparently, it's never been looked at properly enough, closely enough for us to know exactly what it is. It appears to be made of stone. Some people have said that it has magnetic anomalies. If you look at the structure, you can see quite clearly there's what looks like a flight of steps up one side of it. And it's circular in shape. It has straight lines on it. These things are not produced by nature. They're definitely not produced by nature. The thing about it is, what's odd, I mean, is it attached to the bedrock, or is it like floating? Because you see,
one of
Graham
the pictures
Hancock
does look like it skids, but again, is that pareidolia? I don't know, you know. It looks like it's almost come to a slow rest over a distance, you know.
It says center of the Gulf of Bothnia. Yeah, it is in the. It looks like it could be just something that's an outcrop of rock. However, my guess is it's not so much. I don't think it's a UFO. My guess is it may be something more connected to the kind of thing Graham Hancock is interested in. That is the ancient civilization kind of thing.
It's very reminiscent of maybe it's a bit too intricate, but reminds me of things like the Bimini Road.
Yes. Yeah. This is the sort of thing he's been investigating. He investigated like the Yonaguni structure, the Bimini Road, various other that are on the seabed. Now, because we don't know exactly where this is, we can't check with the seabed level to find out what the sea levels, like during the Ice Age, where the sea level was lower. Was this on dry land? Because if it wasn't, then we've got a bit of a problem, because it can't have been created by any of the societies that existed at that time, which Graham Hancock has been interested in. Then you've got to ask yourself, you go back further in time, has there ever been a moment when that particular area, wherever it is, we don't know where it is because the salvage experts won't tell us, has there ever been a location where that area of the seabed has been dry land? Because it may well be an awful lot older than those other things that Graham Hancock has discovered. It won't be possible until there's like a proper expedition. I'm surprised Graham Hancock hasn't been knocking on the door of the salvage people and saying, "Where is it? Where is it? Tell me, tell me."
You know, Ben, when Uncle Donny brought this up, I initially thought, yeah, that's old news, right? And I remember covering it back in the day. But when I went looking for it, it was quite weird. Because there was like almost a cut-off. There was like nothing. And whether it's this Ocean X or rightly keeping it under wraps for salvage reasons, I get that. Or whether there's something more going on there. Because I don't know what it is, but I think it's almost ridiculous to go along with the academic explanation that it's just a geographical feature, you know?
Yeah, it's like what the guy said about the Yonaguni structure. Remember, Hancock had a debate with this geologist saying, "Oh no, it's just natural formation." He said, "Look, it's got straight lines on it. It's like it has steps. I mean, the Yonaguni structure has steps. This has what looks like a flight of steps. It's nature doesn't produce things like this, not to that extent. It's and just to dismiss it, or at least, all right." I would say to anyone who said that's a geologic formation, well, if it is, then maybe we can look at it and it'll find out that's true. But the people saying it's a natural geological formation haven't even investigated it. They're just saying, "Oh, that's what it is, and I think that's what it is, and I'm not going to look at it any further." As the late, great Stanton Friedman used to say, "Don't bother me with the facts, my mind's made up." I think until we gather the facts, we can't make our mind up. And I'm surprised, Kev, it's funny you bring that up, because, I've not thought about it for a while, because it was very big for maybe about 5 or 10 years, 5, 6, 8 years ago, and then suddenly went quiet.
That's what really got me, because when it was brought up, yes, right away I knew what he was talking about. Then I'm thinking, well, I haven't heard like guests on shows or people bringing up, the latest with the Baltic Sea anomaly. And for me, this is like one of the big kind of question marks out there. I'm like you. I just want it to be investigated further so we know what we're looking at, what we're dealing with here,
Exactly. Well, it's springtime now, so the ice will hopefully. I don't know exactly when the sea. I know it's frozen over in winter. I don't know when that sea ice clears, but we're in the spring, so I imagine the sea's up. The sea is now free of ice. I'd love to. Maybe we take this opportunity this summer to do an expedition. Somebody will do an expedition to this location, find out where it is, go there, and do further study on it. I mean, Graham Hancock is the guy I'd like to see get involved, because he's the guy who has the resources, he has the knowledge, and he has the enthusiasm for this sort of thing.
And this is what gets me, because when we come back after the break, we're going to be lording over man's achievement of making the first flight on another planet. Allegedly, that we know of. And there we are, investigating the surface of other planets and things like the... And gentlemen, final segment of today's really, really great Kev Baker show. Not because of Kev Baker, but because of Ben Emlyn-Jones. Fantastic conversation today, as it always is with Ben. We were talking before the break about the Baltic Sea anomaly. I'm going to dive back into this, like Ben was saying as well. See what I can find out about Ocean X, the team around this, as it's one of these really fascinating topics. Before the break, I was kind of ironically saying how wonderful mankind is. We have a historic first flight of a craft up on another planet to talk about. But at the very same time, we know so little about the rock that we actually live on. You think of the ocean, the unexplored parts down there, things like the Baltic Sea anomaly, and so many other things that we could probably put on a list that need more investigation to find out what's going on this planet, let alone what's going on up on Mars. Ben? And a historic day, like I say, and I tell you, I feel like a kid again, like a little child when I'm watching the whole NASA thing now. You see them in the control rooms, and we've got this Mars Perseverance, now the helicopter, the Mars Copter, should I say. Ben, what do you make of it all, dude?
It's interesting to watch, and I mean, of course, I understand the excitement of the whole thing, because I really love the enthusiasm of the scientists and the engineers who built this amazing machine. The helicopter itself it's very similar to a drone that you see on Earth. It's quite small. It's only 4 feet across, and it has like twin counter-rotating rotors, and it flew. It flew for the first time. It was only in the air for less than a minute. It went up in the air and came back down again. But it did fly. What's interesting is, I think we talked on the previous show. You have for the first time ever, you actually have motion picture from another world. You have. Previously, all you got was still images. Now, the Perseverance has the ability to produce motion pictures. So there's actually film release. NASA actually did release, first they released three stills of the flight. Now you've got the entire flight of this object captured on camera. It just raises up into the air and goes back down again. But of course, this is incredibly significant, because this is according to NASA, this is the first time an aircraft from Earth has flown on another planet. Now, I wonder if that's the case, because we've talked before about the secret space program and what that appears to be capable of. And I know that several other people have spoken about this, but it's interesting to see. Obviously, this happens on Earth all the time, but it's amazing to see this happen on Mars. However, what else is going on Mars, which we haven't been told about? Are there other aircraft that are already there, possibly with people, humans, and maybe aliens too? I mean, I don't know.
I'm really looking forward to him. I need to do it one day soon. I'm just going to do a live stream and get as many of the new 4K, 8K, high-def images that we've got of just the Martian landscape. And we're going to play... Is it, or is it Pareidolia? That's what we're going to play, because I would imagine that we're going to find heaps of stuff that's interesting, dude. And if we start looking long enough, right, you know, like staring at clouds, we're going to start seeing things. Now, me personally, I do think, just an opinion, I think if we were to look hard enough and over enough of an area, I do think we would find stuff that maybe hints at some kind of something weird going on in the past on Mars, okay? Whether it's there already, I've not really checked. But I'm just full of excitement, dude, when it comes to the whole space thing, I must admit.
It is. I mean, obviously, the idea that there's more to Mars than we've been told is something we've discussed several times on this show, and it's something I think very significant. It's important questions that need to be asked. Indeed, if you walk across a landscape on Earth and look at the stones under your feet, at some point you will see something that looks familiar. It's as all staring at the clouds, as you said. However, what you have on Mars is you have, for example, the strange creature that we were seen crawling up the side of a cliff face. Now that is very, very odd. I'd say it's a creature because I can't think of what else it could be. It's something that's definitely not part of the cliff face, and it has, I think it looks a bit spider-like. I think it has 8 legs. It looks like a spider or a crab, and it's climbing up. It looks like it's clinging to or climbing up the side of this rock face. It's a really, really weird thing to see. Now, it's impossible. I mean, again, we're dealing with an unfalsifiable hypothesis. That's it. Yeah. Now, if that's the problem with pareidolia, is that it is something that is unprovable. It's something that you can't really dispute, because if someone says, "Well, that's just coincidental," how do you disprove that? If it's anything physically possible that happens in the world. It could happen. You can't say that anything physically possible in the world cannot happen because it's too unlikely. Then you could just dismiss everything. This is what the skeptics do. They dismiss everything as a pareidolia. That there is an extremely weird thing. Now, have you ever seen anything like that? It looks like a spider or crab, but it's on Mars.
That's very weird. You know, again, pareidolia is going to be kicking in now, but I see something similar to some of the rock art that you see in Australia. The big kind of white eyes, the big head, and then you got the body kind of coming down. And again, everyone's going to see something different, but even when you look at the body portion of this, it looks like it's got a face on it.
It could be. I mean, it could be like, to me, it looks like a shell, like it's a creature with a shell.
Is it a hero and a half shell, is it?
Like a crustacean, it has a shell, and if it has patterns on the shell.
Got one giant long tentacle, perhaps, but it looks.
It appears to have feet, something like a feelers on the front or a head.
It's also got a set of Dr. Dre headset. It looks like a set of Beats.
Well, look at the sedimentary rock around it, because obviously Mars was once like the Earth. I mean, everyone accepts that it had water. You can see what looks like sedimentary. You see this stratification. I mean, I've heard people talk about this before. This stratification is actually created by sand, which settles on the floor of the seabed, and it builds up layer after layer after layer over time. And eventually, when the seabed rises or the sea level falls, you're left with this kind of rock. What you see there is not actually connected to, it's not actually attached to it. You can see it has shadows. Do you see there's shadows between it and the rock face? If I saw that on Earth, I'd say that's some kind of animal.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's some kind of animal. I mean, so is that on? I mean, according to some people, that's not even Mars at all. That's actually called the Rich Planet. Do you know if you ever see Rich Planet? They're filming the whole thing in some place in Canada.
Nothing's real according to there, though, right? Nothing.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's different theories connected to this. I think we can safely say that we're not being told the full truth about Mars. What the actual truth is up for debate. But if NASA are actually telling us the whole truth, I think it's pretty obvious they're not, and there's something more going on. There's something a lot more going on. Definitely. It's maybe we'll find out. Maybe, as we said on a previous show, maybe what happened with Perseverance, because Perseverance is so much more high profile than any other Mars mission. Maybe Perseverance, and what it discovers, is going to be used to put people in the right frame of mind for more information. Excuse me. It's possible it may find life. I do think we're going to find life.
Well, Ben Emlyn-Jones.
They're going to tell us how we're going to find life.
I'm telling you pesky man. Only not pesky man. We're on the same frequency. Because it has been kind of in the back of my mind just how public all of this perseverance is, and I get it. There's probably a need out there for providing a bit of distraction from the hours we're all spending at home and things like that. But we have got people paying attention to this that have never really had any interest in space before. And again, you got people like Musk igniting a fire in people's imagination about all of this going on. And Ben Emlyn-Jones, God damn it. I was going to say to you, Ben, do you think this could play into some kind of event where we do find something while there's so much attention on this, you know?
Well, it does seem to be further up the headlines than any other previous Mars mission. I mean, this is because it is unique in the sense that you have like motion pictures, you have sound recordings from Mars, you have this little helicopter thing.
Are we days away from a blue chicken emerging from behind a stone?
Now it may not be as obvious as that, Kev.
I would
don't
see
think.
if it is. See if we find out it's like blue chickens. I'm going to feel so bad.
I'll phone up David Wilcock and ask. he'll know in advance, no doubt.
Yeah.
But what I think it's going to find life. I mean, we've already had like the meteorite, the Mars meteorite with the little creatures on it. I mean, the idea that I think it may actually be present life rather than past life, but they'll find something. Obviously, they already know if life's there. They already know because the secret space program will have found it. But they're going to let us know. It's like this is the moment when they have to let us know because it's just convenient within the agenda for people to know. They have these secrets, and sometimes these secrets are revealed. For example, centuries ago, the presence of the American continents was kept secret from the rest of the world. The powers that be knew that these continents existed because we found the remains of the houses and things that were built by Europeans before Columbus. There was a Knights Templar colony in what is today Maine, USA.
Let's not mention those pesky maps that give away continents before we allegedly found them, you know?
Again, before old Chris went over there with his ship. And it's so at some point they decide, look, we're going to have to... the time has come for people to know that these continents exist. Chris, can you just take your ship over there and come back and tell them you've discovered them? Could you do that? He'll say, yes, certainly, I'll do that for you. We may be in a similar situation here. That the time has come to that people have to know that life exists on Mars. For whatever purpose, whether it's to prepare the way for something a bit more spectacular, I don't know. I mean...
Oh, I hope.
If we could find that life, if it admits that life, not just life being on Mars, but if they can prove that life evolved independently from life on Earth, then the skeptics, the 747 in a junkyard crew, are going to have a lot of trouble explaining that. I'm no doubt some of them will still shout coincidence, but
now we've got NASA
no one's
as well.
going to believe them.
They've commissioned SpaceX to come up with a new lunar lander. I was reading about yesterday. I believe it's part of the Artemis project. I'm not too sure. I could be wrong on that. Again, the moon as well. You know, you mentioned Ike earlier on, one of his books, you know, about the moon and things. I mean, I'm more leaning towards that being a man-made artificial moon than something that just randomly came about of its own accord, Ben. I don't know about you.
I don't know if the moon specifically is artificial. I mean, it's certainly a very, very unusual object in the sense that it has one of the most regular orbits in the entire solar system. It's extremely irregular orbit. It seems to be very light for its size. Now, this could be. There's people suggesting it's made out of very light material. However, another explanation is it's actually it is hollow or it has cavities inside it. Now, it's like an Easter egg. I mean, if you didn't know that a Easter egg was hollow and you held an Easter egg in your hand, you might think chocolate is very light, isn't it? You know what I mean? You would have to know that it was hollow to realize that chocolate actually is not light. It's actually heavier than it looks. And it could be the moon is the same. It seems to have... There's other weird things about it. For example, on the side facing the Earth, the geological structure is in the side facing away, the dark side, the side facing away from the Earth. The geology is very different, which seems a bit strange. And of course, they're now talking about going back to the moon or to the moon, whichever your opinion is. With this new rocket, it seems to be in the advanced stages now. They're actually building the Artemis rocket. Musk is involved now building a lander. They're saying, we're going to get someone to the moon by 2025. I mean, I don't. the days where they can make these predictions and they come true seem to be out the window. I mean, Kennedy saying, we'll land a man on the moon before the end of this decade. And they did it, of course. But now they say, we'll get you somewhere. So we're going to land something somewhere at some point within the next 50 years. That seems to suffice these days. So Artemis may well get to the moon at some point. It's a much more complicated thing. It's much more complicated than the original Apollo missions. It involves a space station around the moon, for example. Now, that was not done before. The rockets, they just simply sent the rocket there. But I'm curious to see what happens. I really am, to see where that goes. If they land there, what will they find? If they find something, will they tell us? I certainly won't trust NASA to tell us the whole story if that's the case, any more than I do with Mars or any other planet.
You see, who knows? Who knows? I am very excited about the Artemis project, or the Artemis Accord, as they call it, as they went around the world signing up different countries, and very multinational, very global in flavour. This, I would love for them to get up there, live stream it, and show us, live them uncovering something. Just, I don't know, just for that aha moment. But again, I refer back to what I said to Ben earlier on. I don't really need NASA to be coming out to verify my opinions. And in the end of the day, when we're talking about these things, we're dealing in opinions. And at best, because we keep on hinting that we can't trust NASA, and we can't. So even the information that we're speculating over, at the best of times, could be made up, psyop, who knows. And in the end of the day, it's good to talk about these things. I love thinking about space. But does it put food on my table? Does it take care of my family? No. So that's why I love exploring all these these out there topics, Ben, because I don't know, it kind of takes us away from the mundacity and the craziness in the Matrix, even if it's just for 2 hours a day when KBS is on,
But you see, it's all a part of what happens is very much relevant to everything else that's happening on Earth. So this is not escapism, I don't think, Kev. This is us looking directly at the world around us, which it all ties in with things going on in our everyday lives.
Well, everyday life, dude, I'm going to cut you off, right, because we're running out of time. And here's when it gets a bit woo, because we've had Scotty Lopez and the shadow people that's hanging around his house. Now, I've got no idea what Ben's about to talk about, but I do know something's been happening around you, Ben. High strangeness. Talk to us, man.
Well, this is something weird that I discussed in a video that I just uploaded to Herpanwo TV. But I don't know, you see, I can't prove this. It's a sort of semi-paranormal experience. It's not like shadow people. It's not like Indrid Cold. It's not like alien photos or anything you can really get your teeth into. But I ordered a book, you see, because I've been reading these books, and I've been ordering them. And what I've been doing is I've been listening to them on Audible, because I don't have time necessarily to just read. Sometimes reading takes a long time, so I tend to listen to audio books on Audible. And so I was looking for this particular book on Audible. I found it wasn't there, and I was a bit annoyed by that. But I said, not tomorrow, I'll just have to get an good old-fashioned paperback. So I went onto Amazon and ordered it, because where else can you get books these days? All the other bookshops are shut, or they're out of business. And so I ordered it, and a paperback copy on Amazon Prime, and it's very good if you get them from Prime, because they will let you know. They always tell you exactly what's going on during the delivery process. So you don't just sit there and wait. They email you, and they said it would be delivered to you within 2 days. So I got an email the next day saying, you might be interested to know your parcel has been dispatched, and it's currently at this particular sorting centre. It will be delivered today, sometime between 800 and 2100 hours, which is 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And so I thought, okay. And then so I had the Amazon page open. I was sitting at home on the internet like I always do when I'm not working, and had the Amazon page open, and it said, oh, the driver, the van delivering your parcel is very close. It's in Oxford. It's just 7 stops away. I thought, great. And there's a map, and you can actually see a little green dot where the delivery van is with your parcel in. And I thought, great. So I thought, I'll go and make some food. So I went out to the kitchen where I can see the front door. I can sort of hear it. If I poke my head around the corner where the stove is, I can see the front door. So I thought I'd sit by the stove and keep my eye on the front door, so I'll see it when it arrives. And so I was cooking away. I just heard a noise at the letterbox, which indicated something had just been put through the letterbox, and I heard it go thump onto the doormat, indicating it was something quite large. And I thought, that's my parcel. And so when I looked, though, nothing was there. And I thought, I must have been mistaken. I must have heard something else. Because that's all you can conclude, isn't it, Kev? If you hear that. So, but I went back to the computer afterwards, and I thought, right, it's probably only going to be about 2 stops away now. So I looked, and it says, parcel has been delivered.
Oh, boy.
I thought, right. So I thought, hang on, it wasn't. So I went out and checked. It wasn't there. I checked in the other pigeonholes of my housemates. It wasn't there. I was alone in the house anyway. My housemates were out. And then I went to. This is where it gets really weird. I then thought, damn it, I'm going to have to. It's just what's happened. It has. And I reported to Amazon saying, look, this parcel's not been delivered. It says it's been delivered. It hasn't. I haven't seen it, and so I'm still waiting to hear back from them. But then, funny enough, I just decided I went on to Audible again a little bit later, and guess what? The book that the audio book that I couldn't find, which was the paperback that had just been delivered, suddenly appeared on Audible, and it gave me a bit of a chill, not least because of the subject matter of the book. I was actually. These books I've been reading, I've read 3 of them so far. I won't give you the title or the name because I want to do a proper review. And quite frankly, I'm a little bit spooked by the whole thing. It's about the Antichrist.
Nice.
So the kind of occult books. And I thought, that is creepy. I mean, it could be just a coincidence. It could be I was mistaken. There could be all kinds of explanations for what happened. But I just thought, that's weird.
That's a bit disturbing, a bit uncomfortable. Yeah. So what's the plans? Are you going to review them on YouTube? Are you going to write about them?
I'll do a full-length review either on Hapanmo Voice or on Hapanmo TV or something like that. But because it's something I'm just interested in. I mean, the subject of the Antichrist is. I mean, I'm not good about to get involved in organized religion or anything like that. But I'm just interested in this particular subject, and it's. I've been watching films like The Omen, which is a classic horror
movie. Damien, man. Ooh.
Yeah, and the Second Coming, which is another what are these kinds of. That has horror elements. It's a TV thing, but it's got horror elements to it, and I'm quite. Yeah, I mean, The Omen is really scary because there's this little boy and he's got these evil eyes and things like that. It's like, and it turns out he's the Antichrist, but it's amazing how, again, this is a kind of archetype that keeps coming up again and again and again, regardless of the religious background of the particular society. So this is not something unique to Christianity or Judaism and Islam. It appears in things such as Judaism and Islam as well, but it also appears in other faiths as well, where there are beings that are embodiments of evil that appear in human form.
Again, like you said, it's another of these archetypal type things that we can all kind of. No matter what book you follow, you can kind of relate to that, you know. Do you think then, Ben, because we were talking about this the other day on Warrior Mode, and then there's some person that's been bandied about on YouTube, by a couple of YouTubers. He's a known rabbi, but do you think in our time, we'll see a genuine Antichrist? I mean, I could make a case for that dude during World War II, you know, the guy that was
Mr. H.
Yeah, Mr. H. I mean, he could surely be a candidate. I'm not saying he was. I don't know, but I mean, do you think we'll see one that could be? Is it going to happen? Are we living in those times, Ben?
Well, there are people who do evil things. Obviously, as we know. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, they are. Sometimes they're famous figures like heads, government. A lot of them actually get into government power. I worry more about these type of people, not prophecy being fulfilled, but them fulfilling the prophecy, almost a blueprint as to get us from where we are now to where they want to be, you know? Yeah,
self-fulfilling.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's evil people all over the place. You don't need any particular devil child to be born with 666 on the head. I mean, they're evil people.
Well, that makes a good movie. That does make a good movie.
Yes. It does make it. The Omen is a great movie. It really is. But whether we're in some kind of end times, I mean, you see, I don't. The idea that we're in some kind of end times is perennial throughout history.
Yep.
You'll find that whatever time period you're living in, there will be many generations who regard
The
the
generational
current
thing,
time
right?
as
It's a
yeah, they'll
generational.
they'll regard what the time they're living in is some kind of pivotal age.
Yep.
And again, this is something ubiquitous and continuous throughout history. The end times has been predicted many times. For example, Harold Camping predicted that the rapture would happen in
Oh, he
2012.
was a character. Well, listen, I don't ever make many bold predictions, but I'm going to predict this. Our end time is just around the corner. We're 2 minutes away from handing over to Lucky. So, Ben, tell people where they can follow you and where they can keep up to date with you, man.
Well, you just go to HPANWO, HPANWO, Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, and you'll find an absolute plethora of different web pages with all kinds of interesting things in video, audio, and written form. If you like this show and you've enjoyed what you've heard this evening, I think you'll enjoy that website. And check out my books, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, and there's two sequels to that. It's a fictional story about what would happen if we got the truth instead of lies about all the things Kev and I have talked about. So I think you'll enjoy those books too.
What a wonderful world that would be. So yes, I hope you've enjoyed today's first show of the week. Tomorrow we've got Nano Girl coming on. Wednesday we're going to be paying homage to Prince and getting into some of the weirdness of the Purple Rain. And then we're also on Thursday going to round off the week by the return of Neil Sanders. Now, he's the guy that came on the last time and talked all about Cambridge Analytica, mimetic warfare. Time is now. So on Thursday, it's a test you. We've all been played. And I will be back tomorrow, like I say, with Nano Girl. And then coming up right after these short messages, stay tuned for Lucky and Quantum Connections. Wherever you are, make it TFR and Denny touch that dial.